So while he loads this up, I just want to take a quick minute and acknowledge one person in the room who's kind of been a mentor to myself, Nick, and Brad. Without him, these tiny homes don't exist. Bruce, if you wouldn't mind just standing up, this is Mr. Bruce Firestone. Under his advice and tutelage, we built this showroom, and from this showroom, we advanced the Hammond Hill model, and I'm honestly saying, without him, this doesn't exist today, so thank you. All right, so we kind of went through the introduction. You saw in the initial video. Matt Richards can't be with us today. I'll tie into why he's not here a little bit later. What I'd like to do is kind of explain a little bit about the entire resort and everything that's happening here. So I'll take that on. Brad will jump in, explain some of the Airbnb and the return on investment stuff, and Nick will bookend us with a bunch of information on the sales of the units themselves. So we're sitting today in the Hammond Golf Course. It's an 18-hole course, been open since 1980. 15,000 square foot of indoor space. We're sitting in one of 2,000 square foot indoor areas that can be used for weddings, events. There's another one directly on the other side of this wall. This is a dividing wall that comes down. I've been in this facility when they've had 3 weddings held concurrently, and it felt like enough space. They also have the largest covered outdoor patio in Eastern Ontario. We are open year-round, so when you think about a golf course, typically if you drive by golf courses right now, they're all closed. There's nothing to offer. We have a lot of winter offerings here that make it a big difference. The restaurant's open to the public. We do have 2 Cordon Bleu certified chefs. I built about 3 years ago an authentic wood oven pizza. I imported the plans from Italy, and it's pretty much the hardest thing I've ever built. Every week we have live music, events. We've done drag bingo that sells out in literally 5 minutes for 100 people, and that happens once a month. Tournaments, weddings, parties. I just talked to our head of events, and we have a wedding or a tournament every day, every Saturday and Sunday for the entire summer already booked, and we're starting to take bookings Wednesdays through Fridays. So it's a very busy place. For those of you who live nearby, you'll know. You'll drive by here in the winter, there could be 400 snowmobiles. In the summer, this place, like the parking lot, we're actually looking at a way to expand the parking lot because we can barely accommodate the people we have. And you know, Mark, it's tons of people come through here. There we go. We also have a brewery here, Broken Stick Brewing Company, which I helped build about 5 years ago. We are the first brewery to open in a golf course in Canada, the second in North America. There's a very small brewery in upstate Washington State in a 9-hole course. We have at any given time anywhere from 12 to 15 featured beers. We only serve beer from Broken Stick here. We went ahead and designed some beers specific to golfers. It says 2, but the number's closer to 4. We are licensed on Hammond Hill, which we'll talk about next. So we're the only campsite that I know of that's licensed to serve beer. We sell cans and kegs, as a matter of fact. And this part's really neat. We have a series of beer we call Farm and Forage. And what we do is we actually went and pick ingredients from this property and put them in the beer. So we have a spruce tip ale that is absolutely fantastic. We do a sumac saison, and we've experimented with a juniper beer. So we really love the idea that it's like starts on the property, is built on the property, and is sold on the property. And this one's really exciting. We launched this year. This will be a custom label program. Because we're a small brewery, you'd be able to come in and book a wedding, and you'd be able to come and design your own label, and we'd be able to label your cans for you, which I think is really interesting stuff. The last one is this. We're actually an award-winning brewery, which makes me very proud to say. We took 3rd place in all of Ontario for our cream ale. Hammond Hill, which we'll talk about a lot today, 62 acres directly east of us, just behind me here. About a 1-minute drive, not even, maybe 30-second drive. We have a full beer garden, which is amazing because it's like an adult play area. Soccer fields, several beach volleyball courts, kids playground area down below, and the adult playground, as I mentioned, is the beer area. We have one wedding wedding venue that we have currently, and we'll be adding a second soon. I'm actually a wedding officiant as well, and I married 3 people up on the hill last year, which was an amazing experience to be part of that. So we have 3 Mongolian yurts you'll see right here. They're all different colors. They're made by one family in Mongolia, the entire thing. They're hand-painted, handmade, and if you went inside of them, the most interesting thing is there's not one mechanical fastener. Everything's held together with rope, and most of it's horse mane hair. Really interesting, beautiful. As was mentioned in the first interview, we have 6 jupes. We're the first park outside of the US to have them. You'll see them in the top corner here, and there's a better picture coming up. They're space age, they're amazing, they're powered with solar, people love them. We do have a series of pioneer homes that were built so that you could experience staying in history. You could stay in a home that was built 200 years ago. We work with designers and different officials from different universities to help us come to as authentic an offering as possible. So even the furniture is made from wood that comes off the property. They're really neat offerings. We have 10 campsites currently. We're expanding that to 25 this year. We have a couple of communal campsites. We're kind of thinking about that time when people want to get back and be together as groups. The derecho storm is a big one. It's really what's going to precipitate and answer the question of how we're moving forward with this tiny home development. We did lose about 4,500 trees in literally 5 minutes, like gone. It looked like a bowling ball came right down the lane. But what it's allowed us to do is it's given us space to develop our next tiny home. So we're kind of taking what was really a disaster and hopefully turning into a very big positive for us. We're in discussions right now with HGTV about doing some programs on what we're doing up here. There's a lot of interesting backstories, the tiny home movement, the storm, the eco park. So that's to be determined, but that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at. And one of the things that we don't really have right now on the hill, we have some food, but it's in the form of peanuts and chips and things like that. We put a deposit on a barbecue food truck, so we'll be serving homemade barbecue up there on the hill. So that kind of gives us the missing element, which is food. Give us food, people will stay longer. They don't even have to leave the park anymore. That's what the Jupe looks like at night. Like, it's stunning. The mattress is super comfortable. They come with heated blankets, so if you want to stay like late into the fall, or they're really amazing. These are all the different articles that have been featured on. We did a series, I recorded them with Julian in the back there, of 12 videos that kind of highlighted what the derecho had meant to us, what the storm had meant to us, and how we were recovering from it. We thought it was important that people saw that we were moving forward, because for a period of time, well, I guess about 3 hours, we weren't sure we were going to. But it was important that people could kind of follow along and be part of our story and part of how we were building forward. So, Small Villing Village, this is on Hammond Hill. This is the entire 62-acre property. Our welcome center and beer gardens over here, our children's play area, volleyball courts are down there. We currently have 2 phases available. Nick will get into a little bit more on that. Our first phase was listed with 16 units. It's on the map directly behind me as well. As of yesterday, we had 8 units sold with 4 options. As of 2 hours ago, we have 12 units sold with 3 options. Is that right, Nick? Yep. Okay. We did another presentation this morning, so I think... There you go. We will do a total of 100 units over 4 separate phases. They will be off-grid tiny homes. This part's really interesting. So when we're developing a village, typically with Minto, when you move into the first house of Minto, you're disrupted for the next 90 houses. These will be built off-site, okay? We've ordered custom-made trailer chassis so that these are mobile. So when I build them, I just bring them into the lot. I'm going to disrupt your neighbor for 1 day, which is a really important component when you consider owning a house in this environment. And then everything that we do and everything I do as a construction guy, I changed my catchphrase this year to rethink construction. Everything is done with an ecological standpoint. The units themselves, the units we'll be talking about today, are about 128 square feet, about 3 feet shorter than the unit behind you there. They sleep 4 adults. You could probably throw 2 kids in and it'd be okay. Full kitchen, bathroom with a shower. We will be using incinerating toilets. I've talked about this at length. We have experimented with a bunch of different ways to get rid of human waste. We had used the separate toilet, which is a compostable toilet. There was some lags on the problem there. So these incinerating toilets are made by Cinderella. They cost about $7,000. As a test, we installed one in the office that Brad and I share, and we've been using it for 4 months. They perform immaculately. They're amazing, amazing toilets. They take no water, and there's no drainage, so they're amazingly clean. The reason that Matt's not with us today is we invested $150,000 and bought our own spray foam truck. When we looked at how we could build these and how we could make them as weather tight as possible, as strong as possible, we realized we'd have to spray foam them. We went and got some quotes. They were crazy, so we decided to control the process. So we'll be spray foaming these ourselves, and that's floor, walls, ceiling. The other thing it gives us is it makes them lighter and it makes them more rigid. So because they'll be on trailers, if you ever have to move them, I know they're going to be stronger for you. They will come fully furnished. And that's beds, linens, mattresses, cutlery, a barbecue. There'll be a fire pit. There'll be chairs for outdoor use. I put on here basic electricity. They will be solar powered with a small 15 amp backup to make sure your batteries are always charged on cloudy days or when there's a couple of days of storms. One of the big pieces that I think is important when we're looking at an outdoor eco resort is the inside should be great, but really we want people to be outside. So we oversize the decks. They're 200 square feet, all flat, and it really gives you that experience of like forcing people to go outside and enjoy nature. We've taken care of all this. It's all pre-planned because we're looking at these as investor models. And it allows this, by having simplified color schemes, it allows this to move faster and be built a little bit quicker for us. Some of the stuff we do, that's me marrying some people this summer. We're doing stars and guitars, so we're doing acoustic guitar sets every Saturday from 6 till 9. We're building our own movie theater venue on the hill. Weddings will be a big one because the wedding mantra is really interesting because we can kind of rent out the whole park to people when they come up to get married. We have a ton of festivals that we're working on. We have an open house starting on June 3rd. We'll be doing bouncy castles, face painting. There's going to be wrestling, which is actually way more fun than I thought it would be to watch. One of the members here at the golf course is a trained sommelier, so we're going to do wine tastings and pairings, but in like a forest setting, so we can set up a little table, and I think that becomes really authentic, and we have tons more stuff coming, so. I'll pass you up to Brad.
All right. Let's talk about some short-term rental metrics. My day job, I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Hostfully. We're a company based out of San Francisco, and we actually develop software for vacation rentals. There's over 100,000 properties on our platform. So I live and breathe this stuff in my day job, so I can talk about it forever. If you have any questions after, feel free to pull me aside. I'm going to go through a lot of numbers. The two main ones to keep in mind from an investment standpoint are your occupancy rate and average daily rate, or ADR. Those two numbers will dictate what your ROI calculations are going to be. Up at the Hill last year, our occupancy rate was 50%, and our average daily rate for the tiny homes was $200. So just a benchmark to keep in mind. So we use AirDNA. I don't know if anyone's heard of them for our data aggregator for short-term rentals, but overall the Ottawa market, and by Ottawa market, they do it regionally, so that includes us. So when I say Ottawa, I mean this part of Ottawa, I guess, as well. We get an A rating, which is really good, and I'll tell you in a second why that's not A+. Demand is fairly strong. It gets a score of 67. The good thing about the Ottawa market is seasonality. The seasonality doesn't ebb and flow like other markets like Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa. It's a pretty steady stream of rentals throughout the winter and the summer. Revenue growth, seasonality, as I mentioned, where we fall down in Ottawa is the regulation. And a lot of people probably already know, but there's a bylaw in Ottawa that doesn't apply to us, but it applies in Ottawa where you can't rent out a short-term rental unless you live in the property. So essentially, in all their wisdom, the city of Ottawa decided to put this in. So if you think of demand for short-term rentals staying the same, and then the city coming in and putting in this bylaw, they're artificially lowering the supply of short-term rentals. So that's terrible for people who bought a condo and wanted to use it as an investment. But what it does do is it puts upward pressure on prices because they've limited the supply. So that's a good thing for the Hill because we can increase our rates. That's just the way the market works. So average revenue, so they break it down by percentile. This just sort of gives you a range of monthly revenue for short-term rentals in the Ottawa market. So on the bottom 20th percentile, it's anywhere from about $1,000, maybe just under $2,000 a month in revenue. So these are the sort of the mom and pop shops that have, one rental, one basement apartment. They're doing it as a side hustle. They don't have a website. They might be on Airbnb. They sort of do it in the evenings and weekends. Then you start to get into the people with one or two properties, probably have a website, maybe some technology behind them, and then and so on. So at the top percentile, you're getting anywhere from 4 all the way up to 7, depending on the month. That's $7,000 a month in gross revenue. Any questions so far? Great. So ADRs, average daily rates. So, average, what can you charge a night on average in the Ottawa area for your short-term rental. Going back to 2018, you're in 120, 130, all the way up to where we are about now, just probably around the 200 mark, which is actually what we're renting the cabins out at Hammond Hill last year. One thing I will say about that, though, actually two things. The first one is we use dynamic pricing. So just as the airlines, as hotels take advantage of price fluctuations based on seasonality and smart algorithms that figure this thing out, they actually have that software for short-term rentals. So we're able to maximize our revenue on our rentals by using dynamic pricing like those folks. Also, we set our rates deliberately low for the first year of operation because we were trying to attract people. We didn't want price to be a friction point for people coming and experience the hill because we were a new campground. We just wanted people to come and have fun and learn more about what we have to offer. Ooh, wrong way. I love this slide. I didn't have this in the last presentation. I added it in yesterday. What Aaron said on the video really rings true. When the vision of Hammond Hill is you can come here multiple times and have different experiences, and that's the key word, experience. That's what people want. 55% of Airbnb's most wish-listed homes fall under the unique category. What they mean by unique is on Airbnb, if you have a property that's not a house or a condo, it's probably unique. So we're talking about dome houses, tiny houses, tree houses, earth houses, nature lodge, campers, boats, farm stays. This is what people want. And it wasn't just the pandemic that caused this. You can see in 2018, everything for unique stays is increasing. And this green line here is the tiny home category of that unique stay. So right now it's only below Earth House in terms of popularity on Airbnb. So this gives you a sense of the increasing popularity of these unique stays like tiny homes. And I love this stat here, almost 800% increase in searches for tiny homes between 2019 and 2021 on Airbnb. So maybe we need to build some earth houses too.
Good idea.
What is an earth house? It's just like a,
Yeah, it's like a good cellar, basically.
it's like a,
If you've seen Lord of the Rings, you've seen Earth House.
so like,
It's like a hobbit.
so yeah. So a Canadian would describe it as like an earth igloo, dirt igloo.
Yeah, exactly.
One last thing I'll mention on this is the active listings on Airbnb of unique stays. There's actually only 5,600 listings on Airbnb worldwide of tiny homes. So we're still seeing a fairly limited supply of these unique stays despite the growing searching demand for them. So this is a huge opportunity, and it's what we'll get into as well for the offering that we're having with the Small Living Company. Very basic. Like I said, we were 50% occupied up at the hill last year. That's actually fairly busy, but I would like obviously to get that up higher, and that's year round as well. And yeah, Nick will get into the benefits of being year round as opposed to an RV park where it's just seasonal. But based on $200 as an ADR, average daily rate, 20% occupancy, it's about $15,000 annually in gross revenue. 30%, you're just above 20, pushing 30 on 40%, and so on. So you get a sense of the return on investment pretty quickly as these things get rented out. And again, the dynamic pricing is going to help us with optimizing revenue across the board. And finally, if all else fails, on our website, we have an interactive calculator. So if you go to smallliving.co, we have an interactive calculator where just with a few inputs on price and financing, you can get some ROI calculations of what you might be able to expect for an investment in a tiny home. And I have also created a 10-page report on the regional Ottawa market and the tiny home movement. And some of this that I talked about today is included in that, but there's a lot more details. So just email sales@smallliving.co, ask for the report, and we'll send it your way. Did I miss anything?
Well, this is obviously being recorded, so this will actually be available. So the entire presentation will be available.
No questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Maybe Nick is going to cover this, but you talked about revenues, which is great. But what about, costs? In other words, profitability.
Yeah.
Is Nick going to talk about that?
Nick's going to talk about that, but essentially it's two big buckets. Well, it's three. It's the purchase of the tiny home, And then depending on the lot you choose, there will be a lease for that lot. And then if you want to put it into the Hammond Hill rental pool, there'll be a management fee based on gross revenue. So if you don't rent it out, you don't have to pay that fee. But if we're earning you money, then because we're managing it and cleaning it.
Could you rent it out yourself if you wanted to?
Yep.
Able to add to it as you go over the years. So 109,900 is what the offer is until, and I'll get into that on another slide, but March 31st, so the end of this month. We've priced it like that, just we want to get this first phase out the door, and we want to get people into the resort, and we want to create accommodations for the resort as well. So again, Aaron's mentioned it, having the yurts, the jupes, the campsites, and now the tiny homes that are individually owned by owners, individual owners, sorry, is just an added feature for the resort. Financing up to 90% loan to value. It's amortized for 20 years on an 84-month 84-month financing plan, starting at around 8%. Is your going rate at the moment. I don't know if any of you have got a mortgage lately, but mortgages are sitting around, on an A lender, you're sitting around close to 5, in some cases 5.5%, depending on whether you're insured or uninsured. Mentioned this already, so you can have up to 3 units on each site. We would encourage, 1 unit on the smaller one. So these ones here, 1 unit in a smaller Pioneer home like this is a little bunky. 3 big ones gets a little tight. You can set them up in kind of a U pattern, but we've kind of shied away and said 2 big ones and a smaller Pioneer model. There's a couple of problems with doing 3. Primarily it is financing, and it's also you're just starting to really limit your space and the way that lot is set up. So we want to add as much accommodation as possible, so it's a better offering for your clients, but we also want to maintain, we don't want it to be too crowded. Yeah. So the smallest, which are these ones right here, like the lots 6 through 12 are 40 by 40. So I don't know if anyone's bought a house in Ottawa lately, but generally speaking, if you're buying a single family home in Orleans, it's on a 45 foot wide lot by 80. So these bigger lots here along the top, these are more residential size lots. So they're 50 by 70, some of them. And the ones on the waterfront down there are 50 by 50 for the most part. So they're big, generous lots. I don't know if anybody's been to an RV park lately. You're not packed one on top of the other, and you can't like throw a ball and hit your neighbor's house. So a little bit more privacy built in. And again, this is just to create that atmosphere, right? So early settlers, again, we're going to go over on this in a later slide, but there are incentives there for you. You get preferred booking privileges as an owner. So you book your time, your vacation time in the summer. You can also book some of the other campsites that are out there as well when you're booking your family vacation. So you get first dibs at that before we open it up to the public. And of course, open year round. And again, we're going to get into that in a later slide. Yep.
But you don't have to offer your place for rent during the summer, right?
Nope.
You can just let it sit there empty if you want.
Yep, absolutely. That's completely up to you. So these are some upgrade packages here. Again, thinking of this from an investment perspective, or whether you're using it in personal use, that's up to you. So this has taken some time to refine. We wanted to come up with pricing and the right offering. So outdoor package, which is pressure treated, changing the pressure treated to a Trex or like a composite decking, nicer barbecue, a gazebo, and basically 4 chairs in a dining room, like an outdoor dining setup. So that package is $8,250. The indoor package is pine on the ceiling, pine on a feature wall, stained to your preference, upgraded from a butcher block to a quartz countertop. And an upgraded kitchen faucet. So those 2 packages are going to be your biggest ones. These ones here are comfort-based, so upgraded mattresses, duvets, and blankets, that sort of thing. And then your tech package, which is a TV, indoor and outdoor speakers. Yep.
Question, the outdoor package is an upgrade on what's already existing, or you need to get the outdoor package to get that outdoor deck?
No, so each unit comes with 2 decks, 10 by 10 each. as is. So that's not, the upgrade is the different decking material. Yeah. Down button's not working here. There we go. Okay, so this is park fees here. Sorry, I was playing around and I forgot to take this off. Aaron sort of touched on this. So typical parks run for 6 to 9 months. Generally speaking, if you were to break it down, so some of you are aware of this, some of you aren't. I own a property up in Eganville. So I calculated those days, 120 days. I've never really opened to be in a campground, but that was the initial plan. And I'll get into why that never happened a little bit later. But again, a lot of it had to do with financing tiny homes. So when I purchased this property, a lot of what I was thinking about was, what's your busy season, which is May 2-4 to Labor Day weekend in the summer. If any of you ever spent any amount of time on an RV park, that's their opening days, basically. So you take that calculation, as Brad was saying, with the dynamic pricing, that's likely going to be your higher demand time for most people. Hammond is a little bit different because of the fact that we do have all of these events that happen year round. As Aaron mentioned, there's hundreds of snowmobiles in the parking lot at any given time. And every other golf course around here is closed. So you get lots of traffic through here. But anyway, so your land lease for the waterfront lots was $450 a month. For the basic lots, so back here and up here, is $350 a month on a land lease. Again, these are introductory until March 31st rates. Those are going to go up. So starting land leases from 3 years to 21 years less a day. That's the law as far as land leases go. You will have options to renew that. So you can't do 1 year, 3 years your minimum. You can do up to 21 years. Up to
Nick, how do you operate in the winter?
in what sense? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, RVs, for example, Don and I were looking at RVs, and
Yep.
there wasn't a single RV that we could find that would operate under 3 or 4 degrees below zero.
Yep, so these houses are built to code for Canadian winter. So RVs are built to be as light as possible to transport in long distances. The R value is R25.
We'll exceed traditional. This home will be more comfortable than your home you own right now.
Yeah, and they're all powered with heat pumps. So you get air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter, and because of the nature of the heat pump, it's very efficient as far as electricity goes. And yeah, so you won't really ever hear it turn on.
And those monthly rates that you see there, like for the top one there, Maple View in
Yep.
Rockland, Clarence Rockland, $750 a month. Is that $750 a month for 6 months or $750 a month for 12 months?
That's for the 6 months. So the fees are the total for the annual fee that you would pay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So our fees are, spread over the year are going to be higher, but they're also there to generate income as well. So it does end up being a wash.
The irony of all those parks, there's not one of them that has an available spot right now.
Yep.
You couldn't find an RV. You couldn't actually get a park. They're all
Yep.
completely booked.
Everything's booked. And I mean, we've, as a group, have been working on this for some time, and the traction off at 3 weeks. And again, what are we, 4 weeks in? And that right there represents what, 2.5 million in sales in 4 weeks, just to give you an idea of the amount of interest that's coming out of this in the first launch of this company. So it's, like, the interest is there. The tiny home movement is a real thing. A lot of people are certainly putting time and effort into researching it, and we bring an extra flair to that, where we're actually offering you a village to put it in. And this village is built off of, being eco-friendly, but also creating communities and having events and drawing in crowds in order for you to be able to rent them and to be able to make an income from them, a passive income from them. Again, I know I've said this a few times between all of us. This is 12 seasons, obviously, and you have all of the other amenities around. But the key here is we're not going to have any of these things in the park. They're not allowed in there. So there's a few Airstreams. Is it 2 or 3? So 3 Airstreams, which is a business. They're doing their own land lease up there. They're renting them out on Airbnb, just as but they're older ones, I think. They're completely renovated. Yeah. Yeah. But that is, again, another unique offering on the hill. These aren't people that are pulling in their Airstreams and camping there. It's not an RV park. It is a tiny home village, and we will maintain that brand, if you will. Any questions on that slide before I move on?
What does no visitor passes mean?
So I grew up going to my parents' RV. Now my parents still have their RV on a typical lot. If I want to go to the park, I have 3 kids and a wife. So every person that I bring with me, I got to pay $20 a head for to go visit my own mother on her RV. So we're not doing that. You're renting for the evening or the night that you're there with the family that you're bringing. We're not going to charge you per head. The extra accommodations that you use, obviously you'll be paying for the accommodations. So this was from our first one. I left this on there just to show you the original price for these was $119,900. That was for the waterfront lots. That included $10,000 in upgrades. So you can add the upgrades, obviously, if you want. It's for the waterfront lots. Because those are front facing when you come into the resort, we wanted to make sure that those were the upgraded versions of the tiny home. So when you come in, it has a bit more of a visual appeal. And again, down on the side, so your little hillside barbecue is going to be down in the corner there of that lake. And then all of those waterfront lots will be facing out onto the beach. There's some discussion, not right now as far as location goes, but there will be another lake, I think, dug because of the popularity of these, but we haven't figured that out yet. So this is currently what we have now. So again, this is the rest of phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 2 is the one closest to the screen there. So from lot 17 to lot 50. Which takes you up all the way to the second lake. So this lake here is the smaller lake up front, is going to be a shallower, smaller lake. This one up here is already up there now. At its deepest, I believe it's 18 feet, and at its shallowest, it's 4 feet.
Yeah. It's built like a pool.
Yeah.
The same way you have a pool.
These lakes are dug into the whitest, nicest sand that you would see. It's extremely unusual, in my opinion. I've never seen anything like that up here. It feels like you're down south. But it's not like dirt sand. You know, you see these sand beaches that are dug and it's more like mud. So really, really nice. So those are going to exist at the beginning. So 6 months, no lot fees with a 3-year lease. That ends March 31st. $109,900 plus HST. That's the Vanguard or the investor model. That price also ends on March 31st. So those are going to go up by $20,000. So to lock that in, it's a deposit of $1,500. That locks your place in the queue for construction, as well as reserves your lot. It gives you a first right of refusal for next year if you wanted to add either lots. So a lot of people are buying more than one. The groupings on there are like these 2 and this one here was all bought by the same person this morning. And then these 2 over here were bought by the same person. So like a lot of people are buying 2 at a time. So as you go into next year, you really like this cash flowing great for you. Next year you want to add 3 or 4 to it, by all means. You'll have first dibs at those and first dibs to get yourself in that queue to make sure that you're delivering on during that season for you. Priority booking for guest sites. So again, we sort of talked about that already. When you book your family vacation, you have priority booking if you want to book an extra campsite or whatever before we open it up to the public. 2 VIP passes for Whiskey Wonderland. If you weren't at this one this year, I would strongly recommend you go to it next year. I do recommend that you pace yourself though, because you start drinking whiskey at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was in bed by 8 o'clock that night. So it's an amazing event. There's 650 people here. I don't know how many vendors we had, but it was phenomenal. 32 vendors, there you go. It was a great time, music, and yeah, fantastic. Vouchers for Broken Stick Brewery, vouchers for the restaurant, and delivery on phase 1 is by August 2nd, 2023. Again, we'll have all of those lots filled. We are going to continue into phase 2. We'll give you that first right of refusal right away. We will continue to deliver these as long as Mother Nature allows us to. And again, we're open year round. So in theory, we could probably get halfway through phase 2 by the end of the warm season this year, if demand maintains the way it's been. Oops. So I guess questions before I go to the last slide here. Anybody? These are sort of the most questions that I get. I think I've covered most of them already, though. Yeah,
Do you know approximately what the size of the lakes are?
Aaron.
The big lake is about an acre. The smaller lake's about half an acre. Yeah. Can I just touch on one thing? I know everyone's touched on it, but the winter offering we have here is unique. We're forecasting that winter will be busier than summer. No one else can say that. We are right on the Skidoo path. It comes out on our property, okay? In the middle of winter, it is not uncommon to see 200 to 300 Skidoos. Mark, I know you've seen them. You've probably seen them here too, Sean. They're parked out front and they're loaded. These people tend to stay. They have nowhere to go. So we will be also selling gas on the hill to accommodate the Skidoos. So we'll have an amazing offering for the Skidoos. We have cross-country ski, could have a snowshoe. We do a snowshoe race up there. We have skating rinks up there. We're going to do skating for the trees if we can pull it off next year. So where most parks fail in this model is it's a 6-month revenue model. We are a 12-month, maybe the shoulder seasons like April will be a little hard because it's going to get wet, but nowhere else is offering that. And the second really big takeaway is that this model that we're talking about here, this village, will be the first tiny home village in Canada. So we haven't actually announced that yet. We haven't made a lot of fanfare about it. We want to get through these meetings, but once we announce that, this takes off. Like, this never stops, right? Being the first of anything, so we're the first eco park, we're the first brewery on a golf course, now we're going to be the first tiny home village in Canada. This is a big deal. We have offerings here that no one else does. So it's a very, very unique model.
Aaron, can I ask a question with Brad and Nick? Brad, come on up here next to Nick. I got a question for you two guys. I mean, you're filming this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought I'd ask this question. So,
Now I'm nervous.
keep in mind, get it right, okay?
Yep.
Let's say your average daily rental is $200 on your ADR, right?
Yep.
And let's say you have 20 nights a month, just to make the numbers easy. That's $4,000 in revenue from one tiny house on one lot.
Yes.
But if you put 3 on there, would it be right to say it could be $12,000 a month?
Yes.
So it obviously makes sense if somebody was buying one of these things to have one lot and 3 tiny houses.
Yeah.
Does that make?
There's some nuances to that, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
So your cost on your land lease is slightly, it's not per unit, so it's let's say you're at the central
I was
lots.
hoping it would be 350.
350.
3 on there.
Yeah, well, so it's slightly just because of resources, so you're using more water, so it's a slight increase. It's not times 3 though.
But if you think about it, then there's significant economies here of scale.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you just had one and you have $4,000 in gross income and you're paying, I think it was $350 a month for your lot, then you've got our friend back here who's going to finance it, right? What is your monthly outlay for financing typically? What are we talking over the period of time?
Depends a lot on credit score and down payments, but
But assuming it's 90% loan to value and it's 8% over whatever amortization period Nick mentioned.
Can you give me like without getting into specifics, an idea of what a times 2 looks like?
$1,400 a month.
So if I get it right, that's because that was kind of my number in my head. So if you're spending $350 a month on the, on your land lease, and you're spending $1,200 or $1,400 a month with so you're at $1,500 or $1,600, say, and then you've got some other costs, maybe management fees, and you're getting $4,000. So the cost of buying this should be a negative cost.
should be.
Yeah.
In other words, from day one, or hopefully from day one, you're making more money than you're paying out. There aren't that many investments where you can do that. You know what I mean? If you bought a condo, you probably couldn't do that, right, with a condo. So, did I get that right?
Yep.
So if you bought 3 of these things and put it on one lot, you'd be doing pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of this was thought of to be as cost neutral as possible. Like we want people to buy these and are not out of pocket, and they're actually making money from day one.
Yeah, that's what I think will happen.
And what we want people to do really is we want you to buy one, we prove the concept to you, you love it so much you buy a second one, and then you buy a third one. Ideally, we end up selling all of these to like 30 people because they recognize what they have, right?
Thank you.
And you made your analysis based on 20 nights, but we're gonna we'll be at 25. Like, we're gonna raise this up, right? The amount of stays during a month, we can change.
Yeah, well, I've no doubt about it, but if you get to 66%, that's doable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
just wanted to say, I know, sorry, I'm coming from my husband, but the problem with a lot of people want to buy these tiny homes, they have nowhere to put them. And that's a big factor. Like, that's
Yep.
a big thing.
So, and again, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but a lot of the conversation, certainly it's been in the news in the last couple of days, is, you know, we're giving you a village as a short-term rental option right now. You know, there's a lot of municipal and local support for this company here, a small living company within Clarence Rockland, which is the municipality that we're in. But there's also a level of acceptance all of a sudden to look at this as a more permanent housing or affordable housing option. And within the last few days, you know, we've had some discussions anyways on like a co-op sort of housing model with donated land from the municipalities. So again, I don't know when or how that's going to come, but these conversations have already started to happen. So this becomes luxury. You know, this is glamping. This is, you know, a model based on building a resort and having a place to put these tiny homes. But there is a different offering in the pipeline where this becomes a lot more sustainable from a, you know, people buying their first home. I mean, you buy your first home now in Ottawa, it's, you know, you're $600,000-$700,000 for a townhouse in Canada. So it's just not affordable for the average buyer anymore. Yes?
Couple questions.
Yep.
One is, I'm assuming you can bring your own financing?
Yep. So you can do it secure with a HELOC if that's like a home equity line of credit, if that's preferable. But yeah, I mean, you can certainly self-finance. We do have a few people that have done that. The one thing I didn't really touch on is this piece right here. So how that works. So from Canadian financial perspective, if you're going that route, once you're approved, we start building about 6 weeks prior to what your delivery date is. At that date is when those funds are transferred. So your payments start 4 weeks after that, approximately. So we want to have that there in that timeline. We've given ourselves a 2-week grace period to make sure that we can deliver it on time. But those payments will start 4 weeks after the funds are forwarded to us. If you are self-financing it, the $1,500 deposit reserves your spot and your queue in the lineup to get for construction. The first down payment, the 10% down payment, comes when we start to actually frame it, and that becomes non-refundable. And then it starts basically like a construction draw where you're 10% down, and then when we get to making it weather tight, doors, windows, roof, that's another 30% down, and then we get to the finishing stages, that's another 30%, and then the balance is due on delivery. So once we actually put it on your lot.
And then, sorry, one other question. If you, like, if we were to put together a website for our unit, would you envision, like, can we rent it ourselves, or do we direct people to him?
Nope, you can self-manage it. So what we're offering at the 20% rate is it's a turnkey. So when we deliver these, they're fully ready to go the next day after we drop it on your lot. And that includes turnover, laundry services, cleaning, and all that stuff. If you want to self-manage, build your own site and do it yourself, you're more than welcome to do that.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Logistically, in the winter mostly, the roads are cleared.
Yep.
Are the laneways cleared?
So there's no actual parking. Again, we're trying to create a resort atmosphere, so we don't want parking on the sites themselves, even though they will be big enough to accommodate it. But we will have employees that are full-time staff that can, you know, get you in and out. You can have a golf cart too if you wanted to bring a golf cart. You'll be able to pull in and unload your stuff,
Okay.
but we just don't want you.
Car isn't at your
We
site.
don't want it on the site. And again, that's more of an aesthetics thing than
And
anything
then
else.
just so I understand that the thicker white lines are roads.
Yes,
And so those middle sites have access to either
Yes.
side, I guess.
correct.
So this is the main road in and out. It's a big loop, what you're not seeing here. But these are just little throughways.
Okay.
So that people can walk through and you're not walking through people's property. The properties themselves will be delineated. We're probably going to put some posts in the ground and have some ropes so you'll know when you're on your property versus someone else's. But yeah, these are actual roads.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? So the last thing I'll mention here, because I get asked this question on a pretty regular basis, do we do any sort of referrals? So the answer to that is yes. And again, we kind of had to think this through and rethink it again, because a lot of these are, someone refers one person, they buy 2 units. So the first 3 are $1,500 per unit. 4 and 5 is $25 per unit, and then after 6 is $35 per unit sold. So those get rebated to you on the closing or on the delivery of their units. And again, I mean, we do see a path where all 50 of those units there are owned by 30 people, because most people are buying more than one at a time. And as Bruce pointed out, they cash flow day one. So it really is, when people get excited enough about it, you can see how quickly that happens there. So there's 3 lots left for this afternoon.
The other thing I know we touched on, but these things are on trailers, right? So they're mobile. So if you decide down the road that you don't like lot 17, you want to move it, it's like 10 minutes. It's moved. If you decide that you have a house at home and you want to add an auxiliary home, take it home with you. Like, you know, there's some land lease stuff to live by, but they're on trailers. They're movable. If you find that the sun's too bright in the morning, we'll move to the left. Like that, it becomes kind of a superpower. The trailers are custom made for us. They have leveling legs on each corner, so they're going to be really nice and stable. And we build them elsewhere and we drop them on the property, and it is rentable the next day. I guarantee you there's no one else that can do that.
All right. Some people might decide to move their trailer, whatever.
Yep.
But they still have, say, another year or 2 on their
Yep.
land lease. Do you allow them to sublet their land lease?
The reason I don't think it's going to become an issue is they're going to be so happy with what they have. They're probably going to prove another way.
But what I think might happen is people could make money. If you're paying $350 a month, you could probably lease it for more, if you know what I mean.
I do, and because this is an early set in our offering, we won't allow that.
Yeah.
Like you're locked in because you believed in us.
Yeah,
we don't
okay,
want you to
that's
sub
I
someone
think
else.
this is one case where you may not allow
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like I said, those rates, as far as the monthly rates go, and as well as the rates on the homes themselves, will go up. You know, so the 109 is going to be 229.9 on April 1st. What?
120.
Sorry, 129.9. And the other thing too is this will create sort of its own auto trader as well. It's something that I'll start to develop in. So if you've been here, you're one of the early settlers, and next year we have a newer model that you would, you know, you want to buy that one instead, then we'll just resell it within the park for you, and then you can buy the newer, nicer model.
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
So I see what you're doing here, and I see how that really appeals. I'm thinking of my son in particular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's snowmobiling, there's golf, there's everything else, but he really likes to kayak. So how far from the Ottawa River or from someplace where you can launch your kayak?
So where we had lunch, 10 minutes. Yeah, the Elmer River is 10 minutes as a marina lunch there, maybe 12 minutes from where we are.
So 40 minutes
No, 12.
No, 12.
from where we had lunch?
Yeah, no, but that's
From
on the
here.
river, yeah.
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 But from here?
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
12
Yeah.
minutes from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
There's a marina.
Yeah.
Just, Nick, just
Yep.
to make you feel like you're giving good value here, I have a coaching client of mine in BC. What do you think he gets for parking RVs and tiny homes on his property in BC? It's outrageously high.
Like as a seasonal, you mean?
No, it's year-round.
So land lease? I'd say $750 a month.
Yeah, I would have guessed 750 or 800. You get $1,600 a month to
Wow.
park an RV or something on his road. $1,600. So I think that's a pretty good deal.
So we got to do this in BC. I think is. I said we got to do this in BC then.
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Any other questions?
That's sales 101 right there.
We're from BC.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out, and thank you for those that have already invested in these. I appreciate that, and hopefully we can get these last 3 gone by today. That's my little sales grab. Thanks, guys. Those are the drawings there. There's drawings here on the table for anybody who hasn't seen them yet, and there's beer still there if anyone wants more beer.